And I noticed this trend where a lot of men complain about things. Many of the complaints are justified. And those complaints are often attributed to things like the way women act today, the way society treats men. But when I dug deeper into it, and again, through my work with fathers, I noticed something very interesting. I noticed a very interesting pattern. And that pattern is a father is blindsided by a divorce or a sudden breakup or separation, which is usually followed by the children being somehow restricted from seeing him or him being restricted from seeing the children. And afterwards, they've come the false accusations, right? And we've seen the media stories. We currently have some media stories of accusations. We'll see how they turn out, whether they were real, whether they were false. We will find out. But what's interesting is a lot of men are blindsided, and yet the occurrence is quite common. So it begs the question, why don't the fathers know about the possibility of being lied about and getting false accusations against them? And one thing that I found interesting as well is a lot of fathers tell me, oh, there were no arguments, there were no fights, and all of a sudden things went wrong. Or we had an argument over, let's say, where we were going to have dinner, and then she blew up, and then the next morning she left. And you will understand in a moment why I'm connecting this to your mind potentially being controlled. You will see why I'm connecting that. So the woman leaves all of a sudden, right? And then what fathers tend to tell me is that they did everything right. They did what they were supposed to do. And this is where society's control comes in. Because a lot of men think, because that's what we've been raised and trained and taught by society, that you see a woman you're interested in romantically, you make some kind of approach, whichever way you go about it, and then she gives some kind of resistance until you prove yourself worthy of her. And then your relationship becomes more serious, um, and then eventually get married, have children, and so forth. And a lot of these men will tell you they were doing the house chores, they were doing, what they were supposed to do. And that's what society has trained them to do from childhood, from boyhood. So this is what a lot of guys will say. Excuse me. Now, the other question is, what was the woman supposed to do? Right? Another question comes up again. Why is it that there are guys, so-called bad boys, who don't do those things, don't do house chores? Some of them are outright disrespectful. They treat women badly, apparently, as we are being told, and yet women go crazy for them. So why don't women go crazy for the nice guy who's doing the right thing, according to society, but they fall for the bad guy? And then the other question is, if we are supposed to do all those nice things, cook, clean, help the woman relax after her hard day's work, and be a nice, accommodating husband, accommodating her moods, and so on and so forth, which is supposedly a sign of maturity. If that's what we are supposed to do, who supervises that? Who decides that you've done what you're supposed to do? And if you are truly doing what you're supposed to do, why are men being then mistreated? Something is wrong. So my contention here is my point is that the society has lied to you, has lied to us men, and society has tricked our minds so that we can be controlled. And it has tricked us into thinking that there is some kind of reward for being the so-called good man. Now, This is not to say you should be a bad person or that it's wrong to be good. But what I am saying is there's no reward from anybody for it, apart from the reward you get for yourself from life itself. My position is that society deceives men and women, but we're addressing men here, into thinking that as a whole, they have a power to control the outcomes of individual relationships. And the truth is, short of violence, there is nothing you can really do to control another person. And even then, there are limits, with the exception where the person willingly participates. And I think men today, we are willingly participating in something that is counterproductive to our well-being. And people have these investigations, the government's investigations into like men's mental health. Let's figure out what's going on, what's the problem, and so on and so forth. As if it's some big mystery, right? So if things have gotten so bad that some governments have decided to speak up about it, that means things are really bad. Because this society does not care about men in general. They care about what men can offer. And so in that respect, the red pill is somewhat right. I don't agree with the red pill overall, but with that respect, I do accept that there is a gynocentric tendency in our society, or human nature has that protective instinct over females. Where red pill is wrong is that it ignores that there is also the natural tendency to give respect and authority to men. That's also a natural tendency. It is natural for women to submit to men. A lot of the things that are happening today are distorted because from a very young age, people are trained and shamed into being who they are not. And so a lot of men just decide to follow along. A lot of men decide to basically allow society to dictate to them how they should live their lives. And a lot of men, which shocks me about the number of men, are willing to sacrifice their self-respect for vagina. I literally had a comment about, conceding to what a woman wants, you get laid later. That was the comment. I was like, as if getting laid later is somehow compensates for the woman being disrespectful or disregarding the man's point of view. It's common now that men don't lay rules in their households because they are afraid of being called controlling. And even with their children, people are scared of being called controlling. And it is a problem because there is some degree of, what would I say, interference with the male authority. There is a degree of interference with the rules a father would assert in the home, and it's easy to label that as abuse. So that fear allows men to be controlled. I am saying we need to stop being afraid of that. You see, everybody keeps saying that women should change. I don't see how women can change without us men changing. And I know this is where I lose a lot of people because people don't want to agree with the fact that men are the leaders. If we abdicate our leadership position, then yes, society will step in and take control. But we've gone so far bad where people don't even realize that leadership is not the same as force or coercion or making somebody do something they don't want to do. The reality is a lot of women will not follow you. A lot of women will not follow any given man. But when they find a man they want to follow, they will follow that man. It may just not be you, right? You have to find the one who wants to follow you. And yes, it will take a lot of searching. It will take a lot of dedication and focus. And it will take a lot of effort to meet the right woman who actually wants to follow your lead. But that's life. You don't get things in life without putting in effort. You don't get things in life without trying harder than you tried yesterday. That's not how it works. But society has fooled both men and women into this romantic expectation of relationship that we look for, where we think we're going to find somebody and fall in love at first sight, and it's going to be so cute and whimsical and great, and the guy will cry his heart out because of the puppy he lost when he was 5 years old, and she'll be understanding and hold him and kiss him and say she's still proud of him, and then she's going to jump on his dick afterwards. That's not reality. Human beings forget that we were built and adapted for very harsh living conditions. All these things we have around us, this is not how we evolved. We didn't evolve in comfort. So the expectation of comfort with everything that we want in life is what fails us. And the other part of it is that society has convinced men that they will be rewarded for their efforts. And we are trained for that from school, right? So you do well, you get a good grade. You don't do well, you get a bad grade. You do well, you get praise. You don't do well, you get some kind of reprimand. You do well, you get a gold star or a sticker. You don't do well, you don't get anything, or a dance cup or whatever punishment you will have to endure for doing the wrong thing. Then we proceed to higher education. You know, again, you get grades, you get some kind of praise, you get an award, you get um, um, your average grades and so forth, so on and so forth. You get promotions at work. You get, you know, a raise in your salary and so forth. They are used to those rewards, which we associate with society basically looking at us and saying, oh, wow, this man did a good job. Let's give him something for it. But I see all that is artificial. That's not reality. And it all breaks down at the level of personal relationships. And that's where red pill is very wrong, thinking that status or money or looks will somehow shield you from the reality of what happens once somebody knows you long enough. Who you really are will determine the course of that relationship. And it's very difficult for men to accept that there are other men who have not worked as hard as they have, but enjoy the same woman, for example, because a lot of men see women as a reward from society, right? We hear guys saying, I worked so hard, I made this money, now I want the woman that is fitting of that. And that's not the right approach. We can't view women in relationship as a reward from society because the society does not have that power to give you it. And, you know, as I'm speaking, I'm thinking of a lot of the arguments I've had with people about, they'll say statistics, they'll say studies, and so on and so forth. But statistics are based on the majority, and the majority is actually wrong on this because the majority of men allow society to control their mind, right? So they think going on one knee is the right thing to do because society has told them that, and the woman may demand that. And yet, many men may not be aware, or they think there's something wrong with a woman who begs another man for marriage after she's been with him for 7 years and he's still playing video games in her living room. You know, it's very interesting. In the UK, they wanted to bring laws about for cohabitation, right? They had divorce laws, but they also had intentions to bring laws about cohabitation, how property should be divided afterwards. And they specifically said, can't remember the judge in charge or who it was, whether it was a magistrate or a judge. And he said that how many women have to suffer until they bring in those laws, right? Because they can't get access to the property. But till today, they've not brought those laws. And there's a reason why they haven't brought them. And I'll tell you why. It's because they couldn't figure out a way of protecting women's assets from men. Because most men who refuse to marry women are in relationships with women, sorry. So most men who refuse to marry women that they are in a relationship with, learn way less money than that woman. And there are many guys who move into a woman's house that she owns, right? So if they bring the same laws as marriage into the cohabitation situation, then women will have to give half their property to lots of men. The men who marry are the ones who lose. Now, this is not to say that marriage is wrong, but I have to accept that in the modern society, if you get married, you really have to think about what you're doing. You don't marry for love. That's not smart, even though society tells you marry for love. They will tell you it's misogynistic to marry for any other reason. Don't marry for sex, because a lot of guys marry for sex. But that's also not a good reason to get married. That's not a good reason to get married. A lot of guys will um, pursue a woman for marriage who keeps saying no, right? But those are the kind of guy who end up getting screwed over because, again, they listen to society. They listen to society. As a man, the hardest skill you learn in the modern world is how to take your mind, focus on something, and then go do that thing. Let me say that again. As a man in the modern world, the hardest skill to learn is to focus your mind on one thing and get yourself to do it. Because all success is boring. When you work in a context of society, there are always concessions, there are always things that make it easier for you. But that also disempowers you because now you are overly dependent on things that don't serve you. By being able, for example, to start a business from scratch, that's another level of focus. Being able to build up your body to the way you want to do without cheating, without steroids and other nonsense, that's another level of focus. Writing that book that you have in you, or working on whatever project you want, even getting good at a video game, right? If you play video games, you know that you can't just play all the time. You have to train as well. You have to practice. And practice is not always fun. Often it's not fun. You know, playing an instrument, a guitar and drums or whatever, all that takes a lot of effort. And the same thing applies to dating. The same thing applies to dating. And a lot of men, when dating, they think in terms of what society says. And I don't understand why they think they have to abide by society's rules. And of course, the quickest answer I usually get is false accusations. But the thing is, if the female is really interested in you, she's not going to accuse you of anything. And I think men are trained to believe by society, they are trained to think that women naturally do not want them. Men are trained to think that women don't naturally want them, that they have to provide something outside of themselves to have a woman. But the natural progression is you meet the woman, you get sexually attracted, you have sex, and you build your relationship. Of course, society wants it another way where you delay sex until marriage, for example, and a lot of men agree with that. So I'm not going to disagree with it here if that's the way you live your life. But it has to be based on your own belief, on your own rules, on your own conclusions, not on what society has told you. And I think the mistake that men make, that they expect society to somehow step in and improve their lives, I think that's where we are failing ourselves. And that's what allows society to take control. That's what allows society to take us away from our children and to give immature and unruly, disrespectful, abusive, and narcissistic females, to give them unnecessary power in your life. It's because you are following society. It's because you are following society. And I think there is a big, I think there is a degree of betrayal from society towards men because it's deceit. You know, I feel sorry for a lot of boys when I look at them trusting the system. but also feel confident that they will see through it and they will stand up for themselves, because this cannot continue. This trend where men just give up their agency, give up their self-worth, and think that some vagina once a month compensates for that, right? And many are in sexless marriages for months, thinking that, oh, I don't want to lose access to my kids. I don't want to lose half of what I've worked for my whole life. So you're basically held hostage until either the woman leaves, until either the woman leaves, or until either the woman leaves, or you just spend your life that way, and then you're done. And then you're done. And once once you go that route, it's very difficult to sympathize with you if you choose to give up on yourself. When people hear my message, they think, some people think I'm for women. I'm not. Some people think I'm for men. I'm not. I'm for all of us. The division, the thinking that we have to fight against women is already a wrong starting point. It's already a point of failure. The idea that we have to somehow win the gender war is ridiculous, because there's no winners. Like, how do you win against yourself? Because all women are, they are counterparts of us in our society. They are our counterparts. So by fighting each other, all we are doing is conceding more and more freedom. Like, look at how the laws in the West feel more and more constrictive. More surveillance, more supervision, less freedom, right? And people will say, oh, it's a feminist and on and so forth. But we also considered a lot of that. We allowed it. We also allowed it. Because as that stupid comment said, you get laid later. So it's okay for her to ask you a stupid question and you will give her an answer, because if you say no or you don't give her an answer, you tell her, listen, I cannot help you here. Right? And I'm not saying you should be rude or anything, you can give her a hug. But when a woman expects you to be doing things that are not in your nature, are not part of how you do things, that's wrong. Like I, for example, can never have a woman ask me to walk her dogs, right? And I know there's guys who don't mind. I mind. I don't have dogs anymore. When I was much younger, we used to have dogs to guard our house. And that was about it. I never really saw them as pets. They were guard dogs. So if I meet a woman and she has dogs, that's her problem. I'd never put myself in a position where I'll walk those dogs. But there are guys who walk those dogs, not because they like dogs or they don't mind, because that's the access to the vagina. And I think, bro, just walk the dogs and you get laid later. So it appears that the society controls women, and then because women control men with vagina. But who is the society? Because aren't we part of the society? And the thing is, we are. We are. But we've given up on ourselves. We have given up. One second. We have given up. We have given up on being men. And when I say we have given up on being men in charge of our own lives, it's not about controlling women. A man makes a decision for himself. This is what I want. Let's say you want a home. Let's say you like to cook, right? And clean and whatever, because some men like it. Then you only deal with women who do that because you have. I remember there was this woman I was seeing, and she hated it whenever I cleaned something. She was like, she wants to do it because she does it well. She was really good at cleaning. She was really good at cleaning, like really good, and she loved it. I don't care because I don't care about cleaning like that, right? But the point is, you can't concede everything just to be with a woman. You have to have a hard line on certain things. It has to be black and white. You have to be binary in many of your decisions. And some of those decisions must have the consequence of ending the relationship if they don't happen. And I'm fully aware that this view is no more accepted in the Western society as a whole. But the alternative is that men give up themselves. Because if a woman said what I'm saying, she would be applauded. If she says, if he doesn't do what I want to do, I'll get rid of him. Oh, strong and independent. A man, no, that's controlling. But that's society's betrayal and control of men. That's how they control your mind. But you see, you don't have to listen to it. You don't have to listen to them. You can't listen to yourself. Build the kind of home you want and deal only with the women who want what you want. Nobody's going to step in and stop you from doing that. That's impossible. That's impossible. You don't have to live on the path that the society lays out for you. And I think a lot of men don't realize it. And if a woman is going to deny you sex because you refuse to pick napkins with her, she was going to deny you sex anyway. You see, going back to our earlier example where guys say, oh, we had an argument over where we go to dinner and then the next day she left. What they don't understand is that argument was not even a catalyst. It was a setup. It was an excuse. She was looking for an argument so she could leave. But she planned to leave weeks, months, probably years before, because women take their time when they have a lot to lose. So the last thing that happened wasn't the reason, it wasn't the cause. It was the final step in leaving you. You really need to think about that. If you are divorced and you think the last argument or the last few weeks of arguments were the reason, no, 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 no. Those were the things she was using to push you away, to get out of the relationship. She wanted to leave. She wanted to leave. And you see, I don't even think it's necessary to even be angry at women for this or to blame them, because they will do what majority is doing, except if they find a man they really want to follow. And again, it's hard for men to accept that the woman they had didn't want to follow them. But if you say she's your better half, then of course she's not going to follow you. And if you say, oh, if I don't call her that, she'll leave me, but you're afraid for her to leave, so she can never follow you. A woman cannot follow a man who is afraid to leave her. A woman cannot follow a man who is afraid to leave her. If you don't have the balls to divorce her, to dump her, to walk away from her, she will never follow your lead. She'll always think less of you. She'll not respect you no matter what she tells you. Yes, she'll give you the pat on the head, but she's not gonna see you as that guy, as that man. And so many men view their woman as the source of status. What is this now? As the source of their, you know, as the source of their standing in society. They think the woman represents their value. But it's the other way around. It's the man who actually represents the value of himself, and she basks in it. Think about it. Look at all the celebrity drama that we have when it comes to a couple. Without the man, most of those women would not get the extra media attention. Amber Heard would not be cared about if it wasn't for Johnny Depp. Nobody would care about Jada Pinkett Smith if it wasn't for Will Smith. There's so many women that they benefit from the man's aura. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make women less. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't make them less. What I'm saying is we have to recognize the value of men as opposed to the value of women, because it's not the same. We don't bring the same things to society. But one of the things we do bring is authority and leadership and stability in the home. That's what men bring. That's what men bring. Children cannot regulate emotions very well if there is no male authority. And it shows. You can always tell the kids who don't have a father. You can always tell. You can always tell where there's no father or where the father is, not very confident in himself. And yet it's those weak attitudes that get praised by society. So the deception continues. Deception continues. Now, if you've been raised from childhood to only think badly of yourself as a man, to think male authority is bad, that it means dictatorship, which sometimes is necessary, by the way, that it means tyranny, then obviously you try to move away from those characteristics. But again, that's society controlling your mind. Yes, there is a certain level of risk of being isolated when you stand on your square, because society expects you to concede things to women because otherwise they can't gain ground, right? So a female police officer arrests you. Yes, you have to respect that because she's the police officer, but the only power she really has is the backup of the men who come after you if you fight her. But she doesn't have the ability to arrest you otherwise, physically. That's why we have male sports and we have female sports, because of that difference. Even in a game like chess, they have a women's division. Why? It's not just about being smart, it's about stamina, it's about the ability to be aggressive when necessary and to focus that aggression, to direct that aggression. I remember I was speaking to one guy and I said something about being aggressive. He was like, maybe assertive. No, I said aggressive. I didn't mean assertive, I meant aggressive, threatening violence. And when I say threatening violence, I don't mean go around the street scaring people. What I mean is when somebody encroaches certain boundaries towards you, threatening your space, your physical safety, you have to have the demeanor that threatens violence. You see, everything that I say, as I'm saying it, I can see how society has been twisted to make it mean something it does not, how it's exaggerated. And the worst thing about it is that that's what leads to unnecessary violence in society. When I look at all these females in front at nightclubs taunting and goading the security staff, pointing fingers, throwing things, hurting, slapping people, sometimes getting violent themselves, or fighting each other. This is only happening because society allows it. There are places where those things don't happen because society does not allow it. And when I say society, I mean the men would be respected when they said that's enough. Because really the root cause of the problems we have is that society as a whole does not want to accept that men must be in authority for us to function. Not because we are male, because we are built for that. That's, being male means you are built for that, which does not mean that there's no female that can lead. There are excellent female leaders too, of course. But in general, the majority of leadership must be male. Because even if a woman is a good leader, our natural instinct will not allow us to follow her fully. And then now they will say misogyny. It's interesting as I'm thinking about this, like how they've cornered every bit of reason just to deny the fact that men are the rightful leaders. And the illusion that females have, because they can direct male violence towards other males, they think that's power. So they think, oh, I'm a good leader because I can tell this guy to hurt this guy if he doesn't do what I say. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's interesting. I'm wondering how far this will go. And I know that there are certain females that hate men who talk like me, who think like me. I know they do. I know they do. Which is why most people don't talk about it. They feel it, they think it, but they don't talk about it. Because if they do, they risk being smeared, lied about, and just treated badly by society. So the question becomes, what do we do? What do we do? As I said earlier, the thing we must do is we have to start focusing on ourselves. Not so that women want to be with us, so that we are happy regardless of women. So that when a woman walks into our life, because every heterosexual man should ideally have a woman, I'm not saying must, but should have a woman in his life, at least one. So when she walks into your life, you don't need her in order to be yourself. You don't need her to make you feel like a man because you know you're a man with or without her. You don't buy into the society's bullshit where you need a woman to nourish you. Because when we believe that, we've give up our ability to nourish ourselves, to self-generate our power and confidence and strength, which is what makes us men. We give it up because we think a woman will do it for us, and no woman will ever do it for you because she can't. Just like you can't lose weight for somebody else, right? You can't study a book for somebody else. Nobody can nourish you spiritually but yourself. Yes, you can learn from people. You can enjoy the companionship and have those moments and have moments of joy and elation and so forth. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you facing yourself and your God. So that's what we must do. We must start looking inward. We must start trusting ourselves. We must start valuing ourselves and loving ourselves. That's what we must do. We must stop allowing the males who have given up on their souls to control us. We can't do that anymore. We cannot. We cannot allow our children to grow up without discipline and then become adults who can't even regulate their emotions. We must find a way to think the way we actually think and not have to explain every single thing that we do, even when we've not done anything wrong. Like now, thinking the wrong way, speaking the wrong way is deemed almost a crime. And there's so much hatred. And what's worse is it all ends up turning into money for somebody else. Men are just the sacrificial lambs to be used, right? There was a time a man would be respected. Yes, you still have your obligation towards the society, but the society had an obligation towards you to some kind of degree. You had some kind of right. But now it's all going in the wrong direction. It's all going in the wrong direction, and it's scary. It's scary because it's all pointless. It's all pointless. Male dominance prevents violence, it prevents aggression where it shouldn't be happening. Male dominance gives structure to society. That's how we function. If we melt that away, we are melting the frame around which society is built. We are destroying the very foundation of what protects us. And yet, we just give into it. We give into it without thinking. Because what? You get laid later for some vagina, for a few minutes of that. You know, the first time I realized something was wrong, and I didn't know what it was, but I was looking, I was like, something had shifted. Something had shifted, and I was like, I can clearly see the difference between my peers and those who preceded us. I was like, I was a kid. I was in my early teens, actually. And I was like, what is it? And I hated hanging out with my peers. I always wanted to be around the older boys. And then later on, I realized, oh, that's when all these movements became stronger. That's when there was a strong push to feminize men. But it wasn't yet in effect, but you could see some of the effects of it already. And I could see how I couldn't take it. I couldn't stand it. I was like, why? Why are we so weak? And then I allowed myself to become weak as well. I did. I went against my own instinct and I said, let me do this. Maybe that's the sacrifice I have to make for the world of myself, because that seems what the world wants from me. And a lot of men are doing the same thing. They allow themselves to be weak because they think that's the sacrifice the world demands of them. And maybe it is, but we are not under obligation to do that. We are not obliged to do this. Now, I'd love to know what you think. I'd love to hear your comments and your beliefs, if you agree or disagree, or how you view the way forward. You know, when I deal with guys these days, even in business, and it's horrible. a lot just don't have any integrity. They just don't have the self-respect, they don't have the self-worth, they don't have any integrity at all. At all. Their word means nothing to them. Nothing. And they claim to be standing for something, but they don't stand for anything. You see, being emotional about something that hurts you doesn't mean you've taken a stand. Being angry, people think complaining about women online is somehow taking a stand. No, you're just bitching behind your keyboard. Build a household modeled on what you believe in. That's what we need to see. If you want a certain kind of woman, then we need to see you making the effort to attract that woman. Not based on what society is telling you, but what you realize you must do to attract that woman and keep her. You have to be the man that you are proud of. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. You don't need a woman to say, I'm proud of you, to feel good about yourself. Like, why are we allowing ourselves to be so easily controlled? Now, again, nothing wrong with a woman being proud of you and telling you she's proud of you. That's great, that's nice. But that should not be something you need from her or you care about from her. Really, it really should not be. You should be able to self-soothe. Tell yourself, look, I'm proud of myself. I don't give a shit what anybody else thinks. I don't care. I don't need you to be proud of me because everything I do it for a reason that satisfies my integrity, my rules, my way of being, my way of life, my authority. I don't do things for applause. I do things because they need to be done, because I want to do them. But when we become so brainwashed that you need a woman to nourish you, why do you think that? I understand the psychological root of it. And for most of us, it's because we did not receive the kind of love we need from our mothers, which is why a lot of women feel they are mothering men. Because emotionally, many men are malnourished. But again, as adults, we have to find ways of getting that nourishment ourselves. That's the whole point. You teach your kids to love themselves by loving them. So when you love your kids, you show them love, they realize, oh, I'm loved. So I can love myself. Oh, I'm taken care of. This is how to take care of myself. Oh, my parents are good to me. So this is how I should expect the world to be good to me too. And I have to be good to myself. My parents have confidence in me. Oh, so I can have confidence in myself. You see, it always comes back for the child to be able to replicate for themselves what the parent is doing for that child. It is not to go and seek other people to give them that. And again, of course, we are human beings, we need each other. So I'm not discounting relationships, but I'm saying that this should not be your fundamental drive. It should not be your fundamental way of thinking, because that's weakness. No matter how you dress it, it's weakness. And the reason why it's weakness is because it makes you vulnerable. And yeah, they say men should be vulnerable. Why would you be vulnerable? Like, why? What's the reason of being vulnerable? What does the word vulnerable means? It means you could be hurt easily. Why should you be in that position with a woman in the first place? Now, there are situations in life where you will be vulnerable, not because you are doing it intentionally, you just are vulnerable. So yes, you want a woman who you can trust. But when it comes to the emotional self-nourishment, self-care, we must learn how to do it for ourselves because we've not been taught to do it for ourselves. And when we do it, we are taught that it's somehow bad for women, so we don't do it because we want to be good guys. We don't compete as hard as we could or as we can because we want women to also win. We want to let them win. No, that is hurting us. It's hurting society. It's really hurting society and it's hurting our children. Because what they're afraid of is admitting that, okay, after all this, we still cannot do what men can do without somehow making men deficient. And it's horrible. It's it's almost shocking that in the modern world we still have people who think like they're in a cult, that they will ignore reason and truth to further their agenda. But on the flip side, it will probably be the same 10,000 years from now. There will always be some kind of injustice on a wider scale because human beings just do it that way. Maybe we'll find a way to structure our society so it doesn't happen, but this is not the way. And bear in mind, I'm not saying things were perfect 50 years ago, 100 years ago, or whatever, because we've had horrible times. And you could argue in many ways these times are better, but the recent changes are not good because they destabilize the most important part of the society, which is the family. Which is the family. But now, single parent, single mother households are the norm. They are just normal. People almost assume now that the child is in a single parent household, like schools and clinics, hospitals. They're all centered around single mothers now. Like that is the state of the world. That's the state of the world. So we can't do this. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we need to get clear on the world we want to build, right? I've always loved entertainment, and that's the direction I want to go, to build a new kind of entertainment for the world to learn lessons that will make it better. I think Disney had its place, and I think where it messed up is when it deviated from its original purpose, which was serving families. Because Disney was great family entertainment, but now most families don't trust it, or a lot of families don't trust it. You still have Disneyland and they're still making lots of money, but it's not like before because it became a corporate entity that just became almost an arm of the government propaganda. So Disney had its place though. And I think Disney can go back to what it was. But I think what we need now is something that is for grown-ups, for adults to really feel valued, for men to know they are important regardless of what society thinks of them. And the effects of people joining MGTOW, like men going their own way, which I don't agree with, but I can understand it. I cannot blame for a man for saying, look, I'm opting out. I'm not part of this anymore. I don't think that solves any problems. I think it creates more problems than it solves. But I can understand why a man would have that reaction. But I think it should be more like I'm going my own way, yes, and I'm gonna build a kind of life I want with a woman who understands me. Because even if all these things were not here, the honest truth is most of the men who struggle with dating would still struggle with dating. You see, and where you could argue to some degree for feminists, I'm not agreeing with them, but they have a point there, is that a lot of times men use money and power to force women to be in situations where they didn't want to be. So that's understandable for women not to want to be in that position. Like, that's not right, you know? So I can see why that would make women want to go to work. And I'm not opposed to women working. My whole thing is, look, at the end of the day, we are not going to change society overnight. We might not even change society at all, but we can change ourselves. We can change our lives. We can do that. We can do that. We can be fathers that our children look at and just respect. We can be fathers that we have a good connection with our children. We can be men that women crave and desire and enjoy being with and they trust. We can do that. Not for them, for ourselves. Not for the woman, not even for the children, but for ourselves. Because no matter how way you look at it, a man will always want to give to those he cares about. That's our nature. We are giving, we are nourishers. We are the true nourishers. We are the builders. We are the guardians. We love. Our selfishness is always beneficial because we only take what serves us so we can also serve others. Because we love to do it, not for them, for us. Not as slaves, but as leaders, as men, as fathers. The portrayal of us as these beasts that have no control, that just want to harm other people, that harm women and so forth. That's not who we are. And of course, we despise men who do that. But that does not mean I'm going to feel guilty for what the next one has done, because I don't care. I don't. What I care about is building up my life. And yes, I'm not saying I don't care about the society as a whole, but I'm not here to be, if I wanted to be a police officer, I would be a police officer and policing society, but that's not my position. That's not my position. So just like when a woman commits a crime, we don't hold all women accountable for that crime, and of course we should not. We cannot hold all men for a crime that a man commits, because that's nothing to do with us. That's nothing to do with us. Somebody did something 50 miles from here. What's that got to do with me? What has that got to do with me? I've got to find ways to protect myself here, to take care of the people I care about, you know? So, in order for there not to be any confusion, I'm not saying the solution is to subvert the system or to subvert society or to somehow um, upset the system. The system will change on its own, but if more men start respecting themselves and valuing themselves as men, all this bullshit propaganda cannot continue. It will have to stop. Excuse me. It will have to end. Whether women are the problem or not does not matter, because we're not going to change them. Typing disrespectful and rude comments online, it's not going to change that. It's not going to make the world a better place. Because no woman is going to read those comments and say, oh, yeah, he's right, and change her life. That's not going to happen. And besides, we are not perfect either, right? That's what I'm saying. We have to put the gender war aside and realize, whoa, I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. She's not perfect. Okay, let me work on me being the best person I can be. That's what we can do, and we must do. So I want to know what you think. I want to know what you think. As I work with men in family courts, as I've gone through my own court case, I've learned a lot, and I realized that looking back, now that I've got a great outcome, I look back and I say, if there's one thing I wish I did differently that I can apply from now on, is to not let the emotions of it get to me so much. And what I mean is not about suppressing the emotions, but I should have just allowed them to process quicker. I didn't need to be fretting, I didn't need to be worrying, because I won in the end. It wasn't easy, it was a battle, it was tough. There were things that went wrong at some point, but I have persevered and got a good outcome. And I got outcomes where people couldn't get those outcomes. And I do resent it when people say I was just lucky, but they don't know the level of preparation that I've put into these things. And I've put in a lot. So as I work through with fathers, I realized that many have never had to face something where they had to put in world-class effort, where they had to actually value themselves so highly as to demand things and people would actually pay attention. How to still love yourself and still cherish yourself and value yourself in face of being disrespected. I remember watching one video of a father saying, oh, I just wish you acknowledge me in court, blah, blah, blah. I was like, why? You see, I understand. Listen, I get the sentiment, but that is not the way to win. And that is what the opposition always counts on. It counts on you needing that validation because they won't give it to you. And they know it upsets you, and they know it gets to you. They know it hurts you when you're treated a certain way. So they'll keep doing it because that's how they win, right? So the system is not fair, but you can get a lot more than you think if you put in the right effort. So if you're in the UK or elsewhere, if you're in an abusive relationship facing false allegations and you need some help going through family court, you just need someone to talk to who really gets it, get in touch, go to bravefathers.com. I'm grateful for you being here. Like, subscribe, get in touch, and I will see you soon. This is John Paul from bravefathers.com.
bravefathers.com